with. And I'm going to start with some quick introductions, and then we're going to get to your questions. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff today. So my name is Dr. Emily Anhalt. I am a clinical psychologist and the co-founder and chief clinical officer here at COA. I've always had an interest in understanding how to create a more proactive approach to working on our mental health and emotional fitness. I've matched more than 500 people into therapy, and I've been lucky to work with amazing companies and organizations like Google and Salesforce, TEDx, Unilever, Bloomberg, so many wonderful organizations. I'm going to kick it now over to our very special guest, Kevin, who will introduce himself, though he needs no introduction.
I'm Kevin Love. Thank you, Dr. Emily. I'm a 13-year MBA veteran. I would like to say that I'm an activist as well as a philanthropist, especially when it comes to the world of mental health. And that's why we are here today. So I'm excited to answer some of your questions. I know Dr. Emily is going to be a lob threat today. We were talking about that earlier, what the terminology is for actually setting me up for a question. So no, looking forward to it. Happy to be here. Happy to help in any way that I can, be a sounding board, and also just speak from experience. So I appreciate you guys joining and listening in.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kevin. Really quick, we're going to have the amazing Dr. Jamie Goldstein also introduce herself.
Hey all, I'm Dr. Jamie Goldstein. I am another licensed clinical psychologist, the therapy experience lead, and one of the emotional fitness instructors here at COA. And I am really here for support in chat, technical difficulties. If those come up, you are going to see me there today to support.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm going to get us back to our slides here. Give me a thumbs up, everyone, if you can see my slides right now. Wonderful. Love to see it. All right, so we are COA. We are your gym for mental health. What does that mean exactly? Essentially, we offer therapist-led classes, therapy matchmaking, and it's all really grounded in community. Our idea here is that working on our mental and emotional health should be just as proactive and doable as working on our physical fitness. And so we're so excited to be here to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like during these crazy times. I'm also going to make sure we're recording. All right, so let's start with some participation guidelines. We think that this helps us get where we need to be. So the first thing is we are recording this Q&A, but I want you to know we're not recording the chat. We're not going to share any of your faces, and we're not going to share anything that you put into the chat. So feel free to be super candid with that. Talk to us about how you're feeling, but to that end, I'm going to jump down to number 4, which is the concept of boundaried vulnerability. Boundaried vulnerability is the idea of sharing enough that we feel like we're stepping closer to each other without sharing so much that we wake up with an emotional hangover, without expecting our fellow chatters to be our therapist. So this isn't the place to unlock all of your deepest traumas, but it's certainly a place to share how you're doing, to put in some tips and tricks, to give each other +1s and support when you see someone say something that you've experienced too. And we're also going to keep each other's shares confidential. What's said in here stays in here, except your own shares. You're welcome to take out wherever you'd like to, and feel free to use that chat as much as you want to stay engaged. So we're going to practice that together right now with something we at COA call the resting heart rate. What I would love for everyone to do is head into the chat, and I would like for you to type in what city you're tuning in from and one word to describe how you're feeling right now. There's no wrong answer here. Maybe it's curious, quarantined, hungry, overwhelmed, excited, basketball, whatever it is, throw it in the chat. And that's going to give us a bit of a temperature check of where people are coming from and how people are feeling. I'm loving what I'm seeing. This is worldwide love right now. Keep those coming. Kevin, what's your word to describe how you're feeling right now?
I would say, I have that, what do they call it, running pig syndrome, where, I always feel that constant low level threat within my stomach. So I feel like I'm grateful yet slightly anxious right now, but I think this will act as a therapy session in itself. So this is why I'm also excited at the same time. So a little mixed bag, but overall feeling pretty hopeful.
I love it. The word I sometimes use for that cocktail is anticipatory. So maybe you're feeling a little of that. So let's look at what we're going to cover today together. We're going to be looking at some tips for managing anxiety, what it looks like to balance multiple roles, dealing with burnout, post-pandemic social worries, communicating our struggles, supporting loved ones. But let's be real, I know what you're all here for. It's not to hear from me, it's to hear from the one and only amazing Caleb. So don't worry, we'll be making lots of time for that. But I'm also going to be throwing in some steps that you can think about taking to work with your own anxiety, burnout, build your own mental health. So let's start with a poll here. I like to take polls because they give us a sense, they give us an opportunity to do kind of an anonymous check-in of how people are feeling. So I'm going to launch this poll. You're going to see it pop up on your screen. Totally anonymous. I don't know who's saying what. No one else will know who's saying what. What I want to know is, how are you all feeling as we shift toward this post-pandemic world? Are you super ready? Are you looking forward to it, but maybe you're a little nervous? Are you more nervous than anything? Not ready at all? Where are you at? And once we all have our votes in, I'm going to show everyone what we're looking like as a group. So far, it's interesting. It's what I might thought. And before I reveal the results, Kevin, where would you say you are on this spectrum here?
Again, I think, I think about a year ago, I was really worried for not only myself, but everybody within my orbit, within arm's distance, but in my community, back where I'm from, and just everybody in general. Just trying to be empathetic, lend an ear, listen, but like the unknown is what scared me, right? I think the unknown sets a lot of people off, and not, really understanding where there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, or being able to have that conversation and there to be a bright light or a glass half full. But me, now I feel excited about where things are headed. I feel like we're slowly coming out of this. I feel like people are getting healthier. People are continuing to be more optimistic than they would have been at this time. But again, pandemic fatigue is a real thing, and setbacks are a real thing. So I think, again, cautiously optimistic, and that unknown factor comes into the equation. But at the same time, I believe in people, and I believe that we're resilient. And again, nothing unites us like that common enemy. So I feel confident that people will feel the same way.
Well, it looks like people do. It looks like the vast majority have that mix of looking forward to it, also nervous. This makes all the sense in the world. So I think you're not alone by a mile there, Kevin. Thanks for sharing your answer too. I know people love to hear how you're orienting yourself in all this. So with that, let's jump into the questions that you all sent when you signed up for this experience. And I just want to say how honored and wonderful it was to see how much commonality there was and how eager people are to have conversations about this. Of course, we had so many amazing questions come in that we're not going to be able to answer them all. We've done our best to group them and to try to speak to the most commonly asked questions. And so we're going to dive right into that because we want to save all the time we can for answers. So the first question that we had that was undoubtedly the most common question was something along the lines of, I have felt so much anxiety this year. What are your tips for managing anxiety? What do I do with all these anxious feelings? The first thing I want to say is you are not alone here. Not only did the majority of you ask something to this effect, but also Google searches for the term anxiety have soared to record heights because of the pandemic. Millions of people are out there just trying to figure this out. And the truth is, anxiety serves a purpose. It helps us prepare for uncertain futures. And this whole year has been uncertain and anxiety provoking. So it's actually the expected and really healthy response to have anxiety when we don't know about things that cause potential harm to us. So I want to normalize that. At the same time, though, we do know that sometimes our worry goes from keeping us safe to making us feel paralyzed. So the first tip I wanted to share is to have some self-compassion. Make a little bit of space to grieve. This is a normal reaction to a not normal situation that we're all in. There's so much grieving to do. The life we thought we were going to live, the life we were living before. Give yourself some time to breathe and to feel it and to be sad and not push away the feelings at every moment because they do serve an important purpose. But if it feels like the anxiety is not helping you feel prepared and it is not helping you feel validated about what you're going through and it's just making you feel paralyzed, here are a couple tips that I like to share for managing anxiety. The first one is this concept of trusting your future self. This is some of the best advice I ever got, which is the idea that anxiety is worrying about a future that may or may not happen. Trusting our future self means knowing that the version of ourself that will handle a difficult future, if and when it happens, will be born into existence in that moment. And that version of us will have had more time, more experience, and more wisdom to figure out how to handle that tough moment than the present version of us does now. So expecting your present self to know how to deal with a future thing, it's really not fair, because it's your future self that's going to figure out how to do it. Present you just has to figure out how to handle this moment. So bring yourself back to the present, figure out what you need in this moment, trust that future self. The next thing is, when it comes to anxiety, figuring out where we do have control and breathing through when we don't have control is really helpful. If you have some control, perhaps it means setting yourself up for success in terms of putting a little extra money aside so that you feel like you have a bit more savings. Maybe it means buying some extra water and canned food for your garage just so that you know it's there. But then there are a lot of things right now we have no control over. And worrying about things we don't have control over, we like to say, is a little like a rocking chair. Gives us something to do, but it doesn't actually get us anywhere. So in those moments, how can we take a deep breath, recenter ourselves in the present moment, and do our best to release ourselves of the responsibility of dealing with things that haven't happened yet? If you're really finding your anxiety is problematic, though, one thing I really find useful is the idea of scheduling a worry hour. So this looks like put half hour, an hour on your schedule, daily, weekly, monthly, where all you have to do is worry, ruminate, think about stuff, freak out however you need to, know that it's there. And then the rest of the day, when you find yourself getting anxious, you say, no, this is 6 o'clock me's problem. She'll worry about it. I'm going to focus on what's happening right now. That way we know we have space to think about it, but it's not seeping into every moment of every day. Find your community, make time to play. This is so powerful. We forget when we're anxious how important play is. Play and community are so healing. There are so many people out there who know exactly what you're going through right now. Find those people, tell your story, make space for your experience to be validated. This is an example of one of those. And then finally, we're all about proactive work here at COA. So think about cultivating resources when things are going well. Managing anxiety when you have anxiety is tough, but building up your resources when things are mostly okay, so that when you do feel anxious, you have those resources at your disposal, that's really helpful. So that can look like getting a therapist, even if things aren't super in crisis mode right now. It might look like setting up a meditation routine so that you're already kind of comfortable with it and that you can draw on it when you need to. It might look like sharing with loved ones that you get anxious sometimes and helping them understand what you need from them in those moments. And that way, when the anxiety comes, you'll already have set yourself up for success. So I'm going to throw it to Kevin now. And I'd love to know, Kevin, what are 1 or 2 tips that you use to manage your own anxiety?
Well, I gotta say that was super badass. I started writing stuff down just because my mind was going. So I appreciate that. No, and I think there's so much to answer in this question, but I saw in the comments, Dr. Jamie had said that collective anxiety is a real thing. So again, I just want to reiterate, and I've said it time and time again, that we're all in this together. And I think the beauty of COA, as well as all of us being here today, is that it's rooted in community. So love that this is a safe space. Love that we can talk about this openly. Love the idea of having self-compassion, trusting your future self. I know that I have had a lot of trouble doing that. It is something I still have talks with my therapist about and speak about constantly. That's part of having, guilt and imposter syndrome, all those sort of things. But let's see, what I wrote down for me, it's mostly things I can control, stuff that's also rooted in routine and stuff that has worked for me in the past. So for me, I wrote getting outside. More than anything, I feel like throughout the past 12 months, we all feel like we've been locked into and confined to a space that, feels like we're in jail at some capacity. So be able to get outside and let your feet hit, it doesn't matter. It could be the concrete, it could be the dirt, it could be the grass. Ground yourself, take deep breaths, gain your composure, and just, take in that fresh air as much as you can. It seems like a simple thing, but I've found that it goes a very long way. I actually do that a number of times after we travel to different cities, after we've been on a plane, after we've been in our shoes the entire day, on our feet, either sitting at 90, just to get your feet in the grass and ground yourself. The next one for me is killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and be working out. you never know how much better that makes you feel until you actually do it. Just move your body. It could be something as simple as just stretching, be simple as something as going out, getting a deep breath, taking a walk. It could be inside on a treadmill if you have access to that. So for me, working out and sweating is something that always relieves me of any feelings of anxiety or depression. And if it doesn't totally eliminate it, it just mutes it that much. It keeps it at arm's distance. So the third one for me would be, and this is something that I've learned in the past 3 years since I've gone on my mental, physical, emotional journey, is just practice gratitude. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I write stuff down just throughout the day on my phone, making notes, whether it's successes or failures, just things that I'm constantly thinking about that I'm grateful for. And you don't realize how much those little things end up making your life so amazing and beautiful. And there's so much weight behind your anxiety and your depression or what you're feeling, or even if you're not feeling it at the time. But I feel like just practicing gratitude can get you over so many humps, and can also, if something's coming down the line that you're having anxiety about, just continuing to write down what you're grateful for, whether it be past, present, future. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I get very excited about writing those little things down. Something as simple as taking my dog out in the morning. I'm grateful for that. Having my cup of coffee in the morning, waking up and getting a good night's rest. It could be as simple as that, but it goes a long ways for my mental space.
Kevin, you just gave 3 extremely research-backed, effective strategies for dealing with anxiety: being in nature, moving your body, having gratitude. And gratitude's powerful. It brings you back into the present. It actually lets you trust that future self because you're focusing on what is okay right now. So love those suggestions so much. I would love for everyone to throw into the chat really quick, what of those 3 do you think you could commit to doing this week? Getting into nature, moving your body a little more than you normally might, or taking stock of some gratitude? Let's all put that into the chat to commit. We now have accountability. We're going to do these things. I see some people saying all 3. Hell yeah to that.
We'll get some good responses here.
Oh, right. These are some solid responses. You're inspiring people to do very effective, really lovely things. So, and with that, Kevin, actually, the next question is just getting thrown right back to you. So here's a question we got in a couple different forms, which is, how does Kevin manage all the roles? How does he juggle the multiple roles he plays in a time like this? He's a friend, he's a romantic partner, he's a dog dad, he's a world-class athlete. How do you juggle all of this together?
Oh, well, I think that's 2 of the hardest things in life are staying present and also finding balance. Balance is so hard to find in this life, and I still feel like it's a never-ending process that I love to balance my core competencies, and that's really how I do it. It's prioritizing my family and loved ones first. It's prioritizing my job, which I love, which is playing basketball and competing at a high level. And then I guess the third one would be just helping people. I mean, I genuinely, I didn't realize how much I truly enjoy paying it forward until I started having these type of conversations, and I learned a little bit more about myself, but also, my surroundings by actively listening to people and their journeys as well. So, it's definitely a juggling act, but understanding and prioritizing and balancing what's most important in this world. And I feel like, you can see right there in that photo what's most important to me. So it's basketball. And then at the end of the day, it's being here and being present and giving myself up to help people, especially through a tough time that we're in now. So again, no time like the present. Finding balance is extremely hard. I know that we can all agree on that. And then just being able to pay it forward for the betterment of, overall humanity, but people's collective mental health. Because again, we're in this together, and that collective anxiety and collective struggle again is just a real thing. So that's the best I can lend for that answer.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you for that. And really, I feel you doing that even just by saying, hey, everyone, I'm in therapy. That is huge. Using our platforms to help other people feel safe to do things that society doesn't always say we're safe to do is really powerful. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience. And with that, the next topic that we got a whole bunch of questions about is burnout. How do I handle burnout? What do I do about it? It's everywhere. I'm exhausted. Again, I want to say, of course, we're all burned out. We've been in survival mode. We've been in fight or flight mode for a year. Our nervous systems were not designed to deal with this in such an ongoing way. But the way I think about work and burnout is a little how I think about putting gas in a car. So being mentally healthy is a little like making sure that your car has enough gas to get you to where you want to go. The problem is most of us tend to wait until we're running on fumes to pause and recharge and refuel. And the problem with that is if we hit an unexpected detour or roadblock, like, I don't know, a global pandemic that we didn't see coming, we're going to sputter out because we didn't put enough gas in the car to handle that. And when we sputter out, now not only are we out of gas and we need more gas, but now we've actually done damage to our car. So now it's not just about stopping at a gas station, it's pulling over to the side of the road and calling AAA and getting to a gas station. Maybe your engine's been damaged and you need to deal with that, right? So now the moral of the story is essentially that prevention is key. It is so much easier to prevent burnout than it is to fix it, just like it's easier to keep gas in your car than it is to deal with something as big as having run out of gas. So how do we prevent burnout? Well, let's go through a couple tips. The first one is scheduling in breaks and rest. We tend to be very schedule-oriented creatures, and if it's not on our calendar, a lot of us will just forget all about it. I can't tell you how many days I just don't eat lunch because I didn't actually put lunch in my calendar. So go ahead and put exercise, sleep, lunch into your schedule the way you would anything else so that you know it's there, so that other people know it's there, and so that it's not forgotten in the shuffle. Next, and this is a really powerful one, is learn your early warning signs of burnout. What does it look like for you personally when burnout is around the corner? Because it looks different for different people. Is it that you stop eating lunch? Is it that you stop caring as much about things you would normally care about? Maybe normally you're an extrovert, but when you are approaching burnout, you don't really want to see your friends. Maybe it's that you are just tired all the time and you're not sleeping well. So once you've learned your early warning signs, then what you can do is recruit support in keeping an eye out for those warning signs. So you can tell your partner, you can tell your colleague, you can tell your boss, hey, I want to give you a heads up that when I'm getting close to burnout, here's what it looks like. And if you ever see that, will you just reflect that back to me? Will you just remind me that we had this conversation? And then you're doing the same. You're keeping an eye out for those warning signs of yours. If you notice, oh crap, I haven't eaten lunch in 4 days. Well, I already know that this is a sign that I'm getting tired. Now you have an eye out for that, which leads us to our next step, which is building in shock absorbers and having a plan in place to mitigate that stuff. So for example, if you are noticing that you haven't eaten lunch or that you're caring less about things you love, then now you're going to go to your list of how do you heal yourself before you're so damaged that you don't have the energy to heal yourself. So maybe it's taking a walk through nature, exercising a little longer, treating yourself to dinner at a restaurant you love, scheduling in a break that you might not normally take, right? So what are the things that refuel your tank and how can you give them to yourself before you're running on fumes? This is really the key to dealing with burnout. That being said, sometimes we can't prevent it. It hits us and we do need healing. And in that case, it's really important that we learn to understand and communicate our boundaries. Boundaries are one of the most powerful emotional and psychological concepts there are. Boundaries are the healthiest way to deal with the fact that we can only control ourselves. We can't tell anyone else how to treat us or what to do, but we can decide what we will and will not allow in our life. So figuring out how to have boundaries at work, how to have boundaries with friends and family to make sure that we are creating enough time for ourselves to do what we need to do to heal from and prevent burnout. And then I throw this in there because it's just so important. Community is everything. Community is healing. Relationships are what get us through life. Invest in those relationships. Find other people who feel what you feel. This is a giant room full of people who feel what you feel. This is a community. We call ourselves the Coalition. It's a group of people who care about proactive mental health. We're glad that you're here. So to that end, I think I'm going to toss it to Kevin. Kevin, how do you know if you're approaching burnout? And when you do notice these signs, what do you do?
Well, I loved everything you had to say there. Again, it's hard to follow that each and every time. But no, I mean, you really mentioned it too, Dr. Emily, is that, for me, I have such a long fuse. So to understand my early warning signs, that is something that I've continued to slowly get better at. I think I can put off, really how I'm feeling and give myself up for the next person. But sometimes that forces me to and makes it so I'm not taking care of myself. And it's actually, it creates a domino effect where I'm not even seeing, it's like I have blinders on. I'm not even seeing the impact I'm having on others, that it can be in a very negative way. So that's that, self-recognition and self-awareness for me to be able to know that as well. But you said a great one, scheduling breaks and rest. I put sleep down, actually wrote it down here. I mean, I think everybody knows the, short-term and long-term effects of being sleep deprived. And you, for the most part, are in full control of creating a time for yourself to sleep and getting a certain number of hours throughout the night. Also, part of that long fuse that I have can be tied up a lot in devices. So getting off my social media platforms, maybe getting off my phone entirely, or maybe just putting my phone on airplane mode for a little while. I tend to do that now when I sleep, so it doesn't get disrupted at all. Also, that constant low level threat that I spoke about. I feel like if you're on your phone, sure, you're getting these dopamine hits and you're getting this stuff that makes your life more enjoyable. But at the same time, differences a lot of the time make for better headlines than what we have in common, right? So our minds and our brains are, for the longest time now, been designed to acknowledge and see threat. So for me, if I'm on my phone, I'm more likely to wake up and hear the 5 worst news stories or hear somebody talk a bad word about somebody else. So sometimes I just need to get away from it entirely and go outside and completely refuel, find things that are going to refuel me. And again, as you mentioned too, just to hit it home, relationships, I believe, are true and real happiness. And those can take on so many lives of their own and be so special. But at the end of the day, I mentioned that gratitude journal and being grateful for things. That is what I'm most grateful for, and what has really helped me get out of a lot of times that I was feeling pretty burnt out. That is like the fuel for me is just diving into those relationships and trying to make those better and protecting them at all costs, really.
I love that. And I want to double click on something you said, which is the place that social media has in all of this.
Yeah.
Our head of emotional fitness, Dr. Vinny DeSandu, taught me recently that you should look at all of the accounts you follow, and every single one of them should make you feel informed, connected, or joyful. If they don't make you feel at least one of those things, unfollow it. And even when it comes to informed, there's such a thing as being over-informed. Do you really need to follow 7 different news sites that are telling you all the same stuff? Our brains actually didn't evolve to intake that much information all the time. So be thoughtful about what you let into your mind. Something I've changed in my life recently is that I no longer look at my phone first thing in the morning, because I've decided that I want to set the tone for my day instead of letting the whole world set the tone for my day. So that's one small step. Kevin, really appreciate you calling that out. So we're moving into the grouping of questions that was about re-entry anxiety, is kind of what it's being called these days. How can I feel good about socializing and working in person when I haven't done it in a year? And before I jump into that, I realized there was one thing I wanted to do together, just so you all are learning from each other as much as from us. And that is, go ahead and put in, what are your early warning signs of burnout into the chat? Because you might see some people put things in that you wouldn't have thought of that are actually a sign for you as well. So let's crowdsource. How do we know when we're starting to feel a little burned out? Let's get those running in the chat. Keep an eye on those while we head back over to this question about reentry anxiety, socializing, being in the world again. And this one, I'm going to toss over to Kevin first, and then I'm going to share some tips. So Kevin, people want to know, how are you feeling about going from quarantine life to a world where we can actually touch other people again?
Yeah, this is actually an answer I slightly have trouble with, because it feels like it was so long ago that, we were actually able to have, I was able to go up and give a teammate a hug, or, somebody from the outside that hadn't been tested every single day or every few days. I could have, a constant interaction and be able to reach out and actually touch them. So, I think playing in the NBA and being in a professional sport that, my return to work experience might be a little different than most people, but still to this day, it's just odd not being able to pick up on facial recognition, facial cues, and be able to speak to somebody and see their smile, or be able to, see their eyes between, their hat and their mask. And, those social cues for me are everything. I mean, I think, a good smile and an infectious smile can go so far, and be able to really have an interaction with somebody face to face is so meaningful to me, as I spoke about. And as far as the relationships go, and helping with burnout and everything mental health related for that matter. So I think, as you can see the picture here, just being able to see guys like Channing and Richard and not have to, even think about it. I'm hopeful that we'll get there sooner rather than later, but it's definitely giving me some anxiety that people aren't going to feel comfortable to be themselves in a social setting, or be themselves in a space that they should feel comfortable to do so. But I think that whole idea of community, again, is only going to help this and further this situation, and make it a little bit more seamless in every walk of life. So I'm very hopeful for that. And again, this is a tough one for me to answer, just because I think, it's obviously, there's a lot of ambiguity in everybody's situation when it comes to this and their walk of life and what they do. But, it's going to be really interesting for people to return back to whatever normal life may be.
I think you're so right. And I'm seeing that in the chat. So actually, I'm going to ask a question for the chat, and then I'd actually love to hear your answer too, Kevin. What is one thing people are most excited to do once it's totally safe? Well, is anything ever totally safe? No. But once it's safer than it has been for the past year, what is the thing you're most excited to do? Is it traveling? Is it hugging your friend? Is it going to a sweaty dance club? What would you say is the one thing you're most excited about? Kevin, how about you?
I'm seeing it a lot in the chat as well. I think it's travel. I think, for living in Cleveland in the season, and then being in New York in the off season, I would just like to go home and see some of my friends in Portland and Los Angeles. And again, I'm not asking for much. Those are just, people I would love to see, and either they can come to me or I can go to them. But I would love that freedom of movement to come back just slightly more, so I can see the people that I love, and it doesn't always have to be virtual.
I love that. You're definitely not alone. I'm seeing lots of travel. For me, I'm really excited to just, one of my love languages is touch. I'm excited to have physical contact with others. I'll watch TV shows that were taped 10 years ago and be like, when people go to touch each other, COVID. Oh, wait, that's a different time. Looking forward to not having that response anymore. So I want to share some tips, because a lot of us are excited, but we also have some worries. We essentially are going to have to relearn to walk, in a sense. Humans are very adaptable. We adapted to this new strange reality, and now we're going to have to adapt again. So don't worry if it's not feeling like the easiest thing in the world to just jump back into everything. So the first suggestion I have is getting curious with yourself, asking yourself questions as you're getting ready to go back into a post-pandemic world, like, what's been eliminated or reduced in my life over the past year that I miss and want to add back? And what have I started or stopped doing during the pandemic year that's actually been beneficial to me and that I want to continue? What would that look like once we move back into a post-pandemic world and schedule? So maybe you have found that actually, I thought I wanted to be around people all the time, but it's actually been healing for me to have some alone time. So maybe even once I can see people again, I'm going to save a couple nights a week just to be with myself. Or maybe you and your partner realize that you love each other a lot, but you're really not supposed to be around each other 24 hours a day. And so maybe you make sure to schedule nights with your friends and times to do other things. So we have this opportunity. One of the metaphors I love is that this pandemic has sort of acted like a fresh sheet of snow. And by that, I mean, we carve our tracks through life by doing our habits over and over again. And those tracks can get so deep that it's really hard to move out of those tracks. This pandemic, in a way, has covered those tracks with snow, and we have an opportunity to decide if we want to get down the mountain of our day a different way, and what we want to change and what we want to continue. So let's all think about what that might look like. Next, I want to say, ease in at your own pace. Be patient with yourself. You don't have to dive in head first. You don't have to immediately go to the big rave that's happening on Saturday if you're not ready to be up against hundreds of other bodies. You can decide what makes sense for you and what pace you want to go, and communicate those boundaries and needs to people around you. Check in with your loved ones. Be as transparent as you feel safe to be. Of course, all of us don't feel safe in every relationship, to be totally honest, but I think there's more safety than we sometimes realize to say, you know what, I'm actually not ready for that. Or I might be ready for that, but I'll need X, Y, or Z kind of support from you to be ready for that. So learn to communicate those needs and boundaries. Again, use the opportunity to rebalance your needs for social time, for alone time, whatever else you've realized those needs might be, whether it's how much remote work versus in-person work you do, whether it's what your diet looks like or how much sleep you get. Figure out what the lessons that we've learned that we do want to take with us are. And then also, let's just accept that things may have fundamentally changed. It's possible that things aren't ever going to go back because we never go back. You know, a lot of people are like, I'm ready to get back to normal, but what was normal and was it really what we wanted exactly? I think instead we're wanting to look forward. And to do that well, we sometimes again have to make that space to grieve, to feel sad, to allow ourselves to honor the fact that some things have changed, possibly forever, that are tough and painful. There are people who've lost loved ones. There are people who've lost jobs. There are real things to grieve. And there's also small, real things to grieve, like, oh, I thought that I was going to get married this year, and now it's actually going to have to happen next year. Or as small as I was supposed to see a friend every week, and instead it's just been on Zoom and it's not the same. So give yourself that space to grieve. And then find time to play. I think play is an amazing antidote to a lot of the tough stuff in life because it reminds us that we can connect with each other, that people will meet us where we are. So I would like to throw into the chat, what is one thing everyone has changed during quarantine life that you would like to bring with you into post-pandemic life? What's something that you've adjusted to or introduced or eliminated that you're pretty excited to bring with you as we move forward? And Kevin, I see that ponder on your face. So now I'm very curious, how would you answer this question?
I think integrating a tradition, like we have a Sunday tradition that's typically, giving ourselves, because Kate and I, my fiance and I are so, we take care of our bodies in ways that, it affects our job, it affects our livelihood, it affects, pretty much everything that we do, right? So, we go through about 6.5 days of eating super clean, super tight. And then Sunday comes around and, we kind of get to pick to eat whatever we want, maybe have a bottle of wine, maybe put on some good music, maybe put on our favorite TV show or a movie, but definitely relax the diet and make that like a Sunday dinner or maybe even a brunch type tradition for us. So that's just something that's kind of built in, that we can do all of our work, ahead of time throughout the entire week. But when some Sunday rolls around, we have a tradition and have a safe space that we can just let it all out, eat what we want, drink what we want, and then just enjoy ourselves.
I love that. One of my favorite sayings is everything in moderation, including moderation. So sometimes you got to just go to town, full send. All right, let's head to our next question, which is, I often feel anxious and freaked out, but I worry that when I share it, I'm just complaining. How can I reach out to other people and communicate that I'm struggling? So we got a lot of versions of this question. And it's really interesting, isn't it, how good we are at convincing ourselves that we're the only ones who experience something, or that we're the only ones who can't get through everything alone. When really, in fact, all the things you're feeling, there are other people who are feeling them. Nobody is going to be able to get all of this done alone. No one's going to be able to recover without those relationships. So figuring out how to communicate and how to ask for support is really important. So to do that, I recommend a two-step system. And the first one is to get curious with yourself first, because the more we know about what we need, the easier it will be to communicate it and the more likely we are to get it. So we want to explore on our own first. And there are a lot of ways to do that. Meditation, journaling. This is a great time to start a therapy relationship, having a place where we can look inward and understand ourselves. I wanted to share some questions that I like to ask myself when I'm thinking about what this might look like in practice. So how would I know that I'm struggling, and how would others know? What are those warning signs? What does it look like to me? What does it look like to people in my life? And then, am I comfortable asking for help, or do I tend to wait for others to offer help? This is helpful to know, because if you tend to wait for others to offer, then maybe it's time to work a little bit on advocating for yourself and to think about what is uncomfortable and what gets in the way of you advocating for yourself. Next set of questions is, what is it that I need from other people when I'm overwhelmed? What would it look like to get the kind of support that I'm looking for? So what's worked for me in the past and what hasn't? And one of the ways that I like to get to this answer is through this set of questions. When I'm overwhelmed, anxious, or upset, do I want space or do I want company? Do I want empathy or do I want strategy? And do I want gentle compassion or do I want tough love and accountability? This is powerful because if we can tell people what we need from them, they're going to be a lot more likely to give it to us. So once we know the answers to these things, then we can put words to them. So, let's look at what this looks like in step 2, which is communicating to others once we've been curious with ourselves. So something like, hey, partner, boss, friend, whoever might be, I've been experiencing anxiety lately, and I know I've been less productive or present or compassionate as a result. Do you have the space to support me with X, Y, or Z? So making a clear ask, owning that you're having a tough time, letting them know what it would look like to support you. Next, being really clear about that empathy versus strategy thing. I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'd love for you to keep me company and listen. No need to try to fix anything. I just want you to be here with me and listen to what I have to say. When would be a good time to talk? This one's helpful because it lets them opt in to support you. It makes sure that they're in the right mind space to support you, because sometimes we can unload on someone and they're not actually in the best place to help us, and then no one really feels good at the end. So letting people know what it looks like. And then, from the other side, asking, do you want company and empathy or do you want strategy? Are you looking for advice or do you just want me to be here with you? So that can be really powerful. And then finally, boundaries can look like, hey, I'd really love to help you with this problem, but to be honest, I think I need to create some space for myself to avoid some impending burnout that I'm noticing. Who else could possibly support you with this? So is it always possible that we can get a break when we want one? No, but I think people wildly underestimate how much people are able to do when we make a clear ask and what it looks like to be more proactive so that it's not a big crisis. It's an ongoing proactive approach to taking care of ourselves. So a question that came in specifically for Kevin about this, about asking for support, is how did Kevin summon the courage to reach out for support after struggling on his own? Kevin, I'm really curious about this.
How did I summon the courage, you said?
Yeah.
For me, I had kind of come to a tipping point in my life where, I'd lived so long, within the shadows, and a number of things had gone
The
so
thing
wrong.
is,
Oh, did I get caught up there? I come to a spot where I just was not enjoying my life, and so many of the pillars within my life had kind of fallen over and tipped over, and I was in total crisis mode. But I didn't want anybody else to share my story but me, and I felt it was important to do so, to not only help myself, but to honestly help others. And I would have never thought that kids would be, Mace here from Phoenix would be holding signs at basketball games and expressing themselves, expressing their feelings, and get that community behind me, but also taking that community and empowering them to share their own stories. I think that it took a lot for me to get to that point. I wish I had a mental health gym, something like COA earlier in my life, or had the presence of mind to go through, these tough conversations and have these tough conversations and work on myself earlier. But at the same time, as I spoke about earlier, I'm grateful that, I had these experiences and I've gone through what I've gone through and still deal with and work on, a number of things in my life that I want to better. But it took me a lot to get there, for sure. And being vulnerable was not easy. Learning to be more empathetic and really actively listen to people and their struggles was a little hard at first, because we only have so much time throughout the day. But again, I think it only helps me feel more evolved and to feel more comfortable in my own skin. I don't think that I've ever felt more comfortable in my own skin because of the community that's out there, because of all the people that we have on this, and we're able to speak about these struggles and things we want to get better at openly. So there's definitely a lot here for this answer, but, I'm very grateful and happy that I went through and still continue to fight, certain things, but am able to pay it forward and also have the resources like this to be able to continue to get better.
I love that. And we're going to be sharing a really exciting special announcement at the end of this that will tag with that I'm super excited about. But what I'm curious about is I would love for everyone to go into the chat and let us know, what is one of your comfort objects? It could be a thing, it could be a person, it could be a place. What is that thing that you really crave when you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed? Maybe it's a soft blanket, maybe it's a certain person in your life, maybe it is a tight hug, like a thunder coat situation, but for humans. Maybe it is a warm cup of soup. What does comfort look like for you? And Kevin, I'm curious what yours is.
Comfort is kind of like I talked about earlier, is like being on the couch at the end of the day, having my 35-pound female Vizsla Vestry dog sitting on my chest, and then Kate sitting right next to me. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more than that. That is like my ultimate comfort, is just having that and just melting into the couch with those two.
Beautiful. And it's an amazing thing to know what that is, because that's one of the things we can ask for when we're feeling overwhelmed. We can say, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but when you sit next to me on the couch, I feel safe. And so next time I'm not feeling safe, maybe we set that up. So let's go to the other side of this equation, which is how to support our loved ones with their struggles. And we got a lot of questions about this, which is really a powerful thing. So I'm going to give some tips, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. So the first thing is, I want to say, we have a saying here at COA, which is, most of our relationships, there's kind of this unspoken idea that, oh, I'll take care of you if you take care of me. But here at COA, we believe in the power of shifting to, I'll take care of me for you if you'll take care of you for me. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't rely on people or ask for support, but it means that we're each the agents of our own health and well-being and progress. It means that we each put effort into moving toward the healthiest and best versions of ourselves, and that ripples out from us to everyone around us. So often people will come to me and say, how do I get this person in my life to get better? And my answer is always, first, what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing to make sure you are stable and healthy and healing? Because that's the most important step. So start with yourself, start with what you need. Then from there, when someone needs your support, there's such a huge power in just listening and asking questions. What do we often do when someone comes to us with a problem? We try to figure out how to fix it. That's normal, it's human. We want to be useful. We want to make people feel better. We want to save them from their pain. But the truth is, most of the time, if something were so easy to fix that you could do it after 2 minutes when they've been trying their whole life, give them a little credit, right? They probably would have figured it out. More often, what people need is empathy, company, validation. They want someone to be there with them. And the two of you perhaps can work toward progress, but that shouldn't be the first thing that you do. The next thing that I think is really powerful is the idea of supporting where we can and having boundaries where we can't. We are not able to save everyone from themselves or from their pain. We cannot protect everyone that we want to. So sure, I might offer to help someone find a great therapist. I might offer to sit with them and listen to what they're saying. I might put my hand on their back as they're crying instead of asking them to tell me what's wrong right away. But there are other times that I have to say, I'm not in the right position to be or give you what you need. And so I hope that I can empower you to make sure that you can go where you do need to go to get that support. So if anything, I want to give people permission that it's okay that we can't protect everyone from all of the pains in the world. And people are stronger than we think. And often what we just need is each other. And to that end, accepting the limitations of our power and agency over other people is just an ongoing struggle. It's tough, especially parents out there, for example. Of course, it's a different role, but inevitably, it all comes back to we can only decide for ourselves what we're able to do. So I am curious if everyone would put into the chat, what is one thing you can offer people who are struggling that doesn't feel like it's taking from resources that you need in order to live a healthy life yourself? So maybe it's, you know what, I'm really good at listening. I'm happy to listen sometimes. Maybe it's, I'm a great babysitter, so I could take care of someone's kids for an evening while they have a night out. Maybe it's, I'm the boss at the company and I could certainly do a better job of giving people some time off. What does that look like? Go ahead and throw that in there, because once you know what you do have to give, then you're going to be in a better position to know when what you're being asked is not something that you have to give. So Kevin, I'm curious, people in your life who are coming to you, what's one thing you feel really able and open to share? And you're doing it right now, but I'm curious
Yeah,
around words.
no, so it's all good. So I wrote a few more things down here as we were going through that. But I feel like when you suffer from depression or anxiety, acute anxiety, whatever it may be, like you have a tendency, I know I certainly do, to fall apart disproportionate to the circumstances. And I know it sounds funny now, but that typically leads me to shutting people out, going dark for a while, and therefore not coming back sometimes for a while. But I think, and knowing myself and passing the mirror test, it's providing space. Again, you talk about boundaries, but that also means like a safe space where people can even just come sit in silence with you and remind that person again that you are available. And again, if they choose to speak, be available, ask questions, actively listen, provide reassurance, remind them that this is a safe space. So again, boundaries, and that ensures trust. And then I just wrote at the bottom here that accept that you can't solve all problems, and have the presence of mind to know that. So knowing myself and having gone through it, that's most of the time what I know that I need, and that's helped me learn therefore what other people need in some cases. But understanding and having that presence of mind that I can't solve everything, and my answer might not be the right answer.
Oh, so powerful. Thank you for sharing all of those. And one of the things I just want to again highlight is this idea that boundaries actually keep people safe. I think sometimes we think boundaries are somehow harming other people, but actually, when we know where the edges are, we can come undone a little more within them. So if we're clear with what we can give people, they're going to be able to make better use of it than if they're not sure how far they can go. So I love that idea. So that brings us to our takeaways from today. I just want to briefly go over some of the things we talked about. So y'all are not alone. I know this sounds trite, but we are good at convincing ourselves we're alone. We're really good. That tricky inner voice says, no one will get it. No one's going through what you're going through. And I think today is very clear evidence that we're all in this together. Ongoing proactive work is so key for anxiety, burnout, and general overwhelm. Start the work now. Do your emotional push-ups when your emotional body is in healthy enough shape to do them. Think about mental health more like going to the gym instead of just like going to the doctor. Go at your own pace, have self-compassion along the way, remind yourself that it's okay that things aren't always quick or easy. Explore your needs and then ask for support with them. And finally, find your community. So I'd love for everyone to throw into the chat, what is one of these things that you think you could commit to exploring this week? Whether it's thinking about it differently or going about it differently. Maybe it looks like you making your first therapy appointment. Maybe it looks like you writing down what your early signs of burnout are. Maybe it looks like just saying kind things to yourself. A quote I love is, be careful how you speak to yourself because you are listening. So Kevin, I'm going to turn it to you. When you look at this list, what's something you think you could commit to doing this week?
I mean, of course, it's the woman with the big dumbbells over her head, right? The big bar over her head. But no, ongoing proactive work is key for anxiety, burnout, and general overwhelm. I mean, we've been on the road now for about off and on about a month straight. So I feel like, I've kind of put doing that work on myself in the back burner. It's like, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll do it in a few hours. So I just keep putting it away. But now actually being home, prioritizing that and prioritizing it even when I'm on the road now. I think that doing my work early and setting myself up for success is going to just stave off any sort of burnout or any sort of feelings of anxiety or what's to come or fear of a failed future, whatever it may be. Just continuing to be proactive in my work. I feel like that is something that I really needed right now. So I'm happy to be reading that off of the takeaways here.
I love it. And it very perfectly leads to this special announcement for Mental Health Awareness Month that we're so excited to make. At COA, we believe in the power of exactly what Kevin's saying, that working on our mental health proactively is so important. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so it's a great time to get started. So COA has teamed up with Kevin Love and the Kevin Love Fund to gift you all something we're so stoked about, which is that COA and the Kevin Love Fund are giving away 1,000 free spots in our Introduction to Emotional Fitness classes for the month of May. And we're so grateful. I remember when we started collaborating with Kevin, we said, you know, maybe if I had had something like COA, I could have avoided a lot of the tough stuff I faced. And I want to help other people do that work proactively. So you might be wondering, what is an Introduction to Emotional Fitness class? Well, essentially, we want to be working on our mental health the way we are with our physical health proactively. So we've designed a way for you to work out your mental health. It's almost like, what is an emotional push-up? What's an emotional squat? And how do I do them? These 7 traits are what you'll be learning in the introductory class. And these traits came from research that I conducted years ago about how we can be more proactive working on our mental health. So in this class, you're going to learn and practice these traits. It's a super experiential class. You're going to be in breakout rooms. You're going to be taking polls. You're going to be in the chat. You're going to leave with actionable tools for working on these 7 traits. All of our classes are created and taught by licensed therapists. So they're not therapy, but we believe in the power of working with someone who really understands the human condition. So this is such a special opportunity to experience these classes for free. I want to share the link where you can apply to join. There's only 1,000 spots. We're expecting to get a lot of interest. So go to joincoa.com/1000. and you can apply for your spot to win one of these free intro classes in May. And Kevin, I want to quickly just throw it to you and ask, what made you excited about this approach, and what made you decide, hey, I want to support 1,000 of my community members in starting this work today?
I mean, like you said, Dr. Emily, like it's just something I wish I had when I was younger. If I would have, heard that it was the first mental fitness and mental health gym, I feel like that would have made it so much more approachable, for myself and so many other people. But even in just, taking some of the classes with my personal team and with you guys, just how many incredible people that you meet. And I think, yes, it's going to be the work that you're doing in these classes, but it's also going to be, because it's so community driven, it's going to be the people that you meet in there and the relationships that you build that are going to put you over the top. So that's what makes me excited about it. And again, why all of this was just so synergistic with what I'm about and what the Kevin Love Fund is about. So again, I thank you. I thank Alexa and everybody at COA for making this possible for everybody.
We're so grateful for the way that you're using your experience and platform to support the community. We can't wait to dive in with all of you who apply for a spot. It's going to be amazing. And what you said about community really resonated. We actually had 2 women who were both in their 70s come to one of our classes, and they reached out to let us know that months later, they still meet every week to share their experiences from across the country. So you will meet amazing community in these classes. Thank you. Apply today. We're so excited. And I personally love to end where we began. So if you recall, at the beginning of this, we put one word into the chat to describe how it is that we were feeling then. I would love it if everyone would now put one word into the chat to describe how they're feeling now. It's okay if it's the same answer, no worries, but I'm seeing some really fantastic answers here. I love to see it. And once those have finished streaming in, we're going to put the link for you to apply to those classes in again. But for now, I just want to thank everyone, and especially a huge thank you to Kevin, to his team, to the Kevin Love Fund, because we believe at COA that stigma is changed through experience. You can talk about stuff all day long, but until you experience it for yourself, it can be really hard to shift it. And that's what we're working to do here together. We're so grateful. Thank you, Kevin. You want to talk us out, and then we'll see you all in class.
Yeah, it sounds good. I think the last word that I'll leave with after all this is I feel activated. I think this is just such a great first step for so many people in their mental health journey. So I feel activated.
Activated is perfect. I think my word is going to be grateful. And with that, we will see you all in these fantastic classes. Thank you all so much for being here, and have a wonderful day, evening, and night.